Hi guys, Dr. Rob Barrington here with some more nutrition advice. I haven't done a video yet on smoothies and making smoothies, so I thought as there's a lot of information out there and there's a bit of a current trend, a bit of a current fad for people to make their own juices, I thought I would cover some of the aspects, some of the caveats that you need to take into consideration if you're thinking of using smoothies as a way of getting perhaps an increase in fruits and vegetables, the concentration, the amounts of fruits and vegetables in your diet. My overall opinion is that smoothies are a very good way of doing that. I do use them myself. I think they are very useful, and they are a very good way of encouraging other people to consume more fruits and vegetables. Some people don't like consuming fruit and vegetables. You know, that's understandable. Some vegetables are not, you know, particularly easy to get into your food intake, and therefore putting them in a smoothie is perhaps an easier way. So overall, I think the principle is a good one, and I think they should be encouraged. But I've got some thoughts on the process and you know, maybe some of the things that you need to look out for. So I thought I would just share those with you. What can you put in a smoothie? The first thing, a smoothie is just really a blended drink. You need some kind of base, either water or milk. Some people put fruit juice in. What you put in is really dependent on what your ultimate goal is. If you're trying to increase for example, the phytonutrient content of your diet, you obviously want to put fruits and vegetables in there. If you're trying to increase the protein content of your diet, you maybe need to put a protein powder in there as well. And if you were looking to maybe increase the protein content of your diet, you'd use maybe milk as a base. If you wanted to just increase the phytonutrient content of your diet, you maybe use water as a base. So really, you know, smoothies are aimed, you know, they have different ultimate goals really, depending on what your nutritional needs are. Bodybuilders and people, athletes that train, quite often use smoothies after they've performed physical activity, because it's a very good way of getting nutrients into the body quickly. And that leads me really to my first caveat, and that is that if you for example blend up lots of fruit and you add fruit juice and you make it a liquid form, you do run the risk of over consuming nutrients, particularly sugars. You've got to be very careful with smoothies. It's a very good way of getting nutrients into the body, phytonutrients, but it's also a very good way of getting sugars into the body, so you have to be very careful. Now there's two main ways around this. Don't put sugars in the smoothies if you don't want to overconsume sugars, or if you do put fruits, for example, that have sugars in them in the smoothies, don't consume the smoothies all in one go, consume them throughout the day. The problem with sugars really is the overconsumption of them in a limited amount of time. There's a time component that people forget. The body's able to deal with sugars through synthesizing other compounds in the liver, and then it can burn those compounds and it can oxidize the fats, for example, that's made, but it has to have time to do that. The real problem with sugars comes if you overconsume them in a limited amount of time. It causes the nutrient overload syndrome, and this causes insulin resistance. So if you consume your smoothie throughout the day, perhaps taking mouthfuls of it throughout the day as a supplement to your other foods, that's probably not going to cause too much damage. If you make a quite highly concentrated sugar drink and you consume it within 10 minutes, that is going to possibly have detrimental effects. So that's something to take into consideration. Obviously, if you don't put the sugar in there to start with, that's not going to be a problem. And if you base the smoothie more on vegetables rather than fruit, you'll probably find the sugar content will go down significantly, because most vegetables tend to have much lower concentrations of sugars. They tend to have either less carbohydrate or they tend to have more starch compared with carbohydrate, which then again slows the digestion rate. Also, bear in mind that if putting fruit in a smoothie is not the same as eating whole fruit. It's very easy to overconsume fruit in a smoothie. You can easily take 4 bananas, put them in a smoothie, and you can drink that within a few seconds. It is much harder, although bananas are probably not the best example because they are quite easy to eat, but it is harder to eat 4 whole bananas than it is to eat a blended drink made from 4 whole bananas. It's easier to eat 4 blended apples than it is to eat 4 whole apples. So there is a natural slowing of the consumption of fruit by the fibre, the peel, and the process you have to go to eat it. And when you put them in a blended drink, you tend to consume them more rapidly. And so this is just something you need to bear in mind. I'm not saying smoothies are a bad idea. I'm just saying that you need to take care and you need to use your intelligence to be able to work around these problems, to be able to make sure that they don't cause detrimental effects when you're consuming your smoothie drinks. What can you put in smoothies? Like I've said, the base is either it's going to be milk, water, or possibly fruit juice. I'd stick away from fruit juice personally, because fruit juice is really, in the scientific literature, no different to soft drinks. It is a concentrated form of sugar. I would stick with water or milk. What's the difference? Well, if you put milk in anything, the milk tends to stay in your stomach for longer, so you'll have a beneficial glycemic effect from putting milk in your smoothie. The casein protein tends to be quite difficult to digest by the gastrointestinal tract. It tends to take a while to get through the stomach and the small intestine, and therefore it will slow the digestion. If you want to digest something more quickly, put it in water. And there's obviously a calorific effect in milk, although I don't believe that milk causes weight gain because of the calories. All the evidence in the nutritional literature suggests that those people that consume more milk actually have lower body fat levels. So I would choose whatever you feel happy with. On top of that, what you put in the milk or the water to blend into it is really up to you. Some things that I've put in smoothies that seem to work quite well. Spinach is very good. It's a very good way of getting a lot of spinach into the diet. There's virtually no calories in spinach. What you're really eating the spinach for, the phytochemicals and the nutrients it contains. And in particular, there are high amounts of beta carotene and other carotenoids in spinach that seem to be, and xanthophylls as well. They seem to be very beneficial for the health, and they're not really that common, not found in many common foods that we eat in the diet. So spinach is a very good base food to put in a smoothie. Berries are obviously very good, although they're quite expensive, so that's something to bear in mind. But berries are a very good way of getting anthocyanins into the diet, which are another phytochemical that appear to have beneficial effects. Bananas blend very well in smoothies. You have to be careful because it's very easy to overconsume bananas, because they're easy to eat and they don't appear to take up much space in a smoothie, so you can put a lot into a smoothie, so you have to be careful with them. But they're a very good source of potassium. They have other metal ions in them that are very useful in the diet, because we don't tend to, the Western diet, we don't tend to consume those kind of nutrients, and they're a good way of boosting the potassium, which changes your potassium to sodium ratio. We tend to consume too much sodium, we tend to be absent of potassium, so banana is a good way of redressing that imbalance. Apples, possibly not the greatest food to put in a blended drink. They don't tend to blend that well, but if you put one or two in, they tend to be, as long as they're small apples, they tend to be okay. And then really, there's a lot of vegetables you could put in to a smoothie as well. Carrots seem to go in to smoothies very well and seem to give it a very nice flavour. Really, there's some foods. So I'm saying that it's a very good way of putting some foods into your diet that you maybe wouldn't normally consume. Now, when you consume carrots in a smoothie, one thing I would say is that root vegetables tend to be very good at accumulating toxins. They tend to be very good at accumulating pesticides. So that is one type of food that I would go, if you could, either peel them very carefully and take a lot of the carrot with the peel to get rid of most of the pesticides that will be on the outside of them, or use organic carrots. Generally, root vegetables, I would always try and get organic versions of them, just because they tend to accumulate, studies show they do tend to accumulate pesticides more so than perhaps other vegetables. And really, what you put in is up to your own imagination. Herbs and spices are another thing that you can put in that tend to be very high in phytonutrients. They're very high in antioxidants, but they tend to go very well and give very good taste to smoothies. Cinnamon, for example, is brilliant to put into a smoothie. It gives it a very nice cinnamon taste, but cinnamon is very high in chromium. It's also very high in antioxidants, and it's very good for increasing insulin sensitivity. So that's something you could do if you're going to have a smoothie every day. Putting cinnamon in would be a very good idea. Cocoa powder as well. It has the proanthocyanidin compounds of class of flavonoids, which are large polymers of the epicatechin and catechin monomers that you get in green tea. So cocoa has the same flavonoids really that you get in green tea. It's just that they're polymerized together into larger compounds, and there are many studies that have looked at the effects of cocoa, and it does appear to have very good antioxidant effects. These proanthocyanidins tend to be they do seem to be bioavailable, and it does add obviously a chocolatey flavour to any drink that you put it into. On top of that, really let your imagination go wild. Try different vegetables. Some obviously are going to have, for example, if you put broccoli or cauliflower in, you're going to get that very bitter taste that both broccoli and cauliflower have. Now, if you like that, fair enough. You shouldn't really eat too much raw broccoli or cauliflower, but you have to be, it's no good me making recommendations here, because everybody's taste buds are different and everybody has different tastes. Generally, most people obviously like the sweeter fruits. The vegetables are a little bit more difficult to predict. For example, spinach, some people dislike, some people don't mind the taste, but spinach, again, it is quite bitter. So maybe if you do find that you put spinach in, it's too bitter, put less in, or try maybe frozen spinach instead. There are ways around it. I do think frozen spinach tastes a little bit different to fresh spinach. Fresh spinach does tend to have a bit more of a pungent taste when it's blended, and I think that's because it's fresher. There are other things you can put in, like watercress, but again, that's very bitter. But herbs and spices, really, things like rosemary, cinnamon's very good. Rosemary, sage, thyme. You can go wild with the herbs. Herbs have a very, very high antioxidant content, higher than most fruits and vegetables. It's just that obviously we don't eat many herbs and spices, so they don't contribute that much to the antioxidant capacity that we have in our diet. But if you try and incorporate more herbs and spices into the diet, and putting them in a blended drink is a very good way of doing that, they are actually very good sources of antioxidants. They've got some of the highest antioxidant content of any plant foods, and like I say, cinnamon, it tastes very nice as well. Ginger is another one. Powdered ginger you can put in. You could put fresh ginger in as well. Obviously the blender would then blend the ginger into nothing, so you would get the taste without having to actually worry about the fibrous nature of the actual ginger root. So there's many things you can put in, and I would really just experiment with things and see what your tastes want. If you want to put whey protein in, that's another common thing that's done. It boosts the protein content of the drink, and that's a very good thing you can do as well. A spoonful of extra virgin olive oil, or perhaps your flaxseed oil if you take that. Those kind of oils also blend in very well into the drink, and that's a very good way of taking those oils. If, for example, you're taking flaxseed oil from the spoon, it's not the nicest. It's fairly nutty. It's a fairly nutty taste, but it's not the nicest taste. So if you put it in a drink, it's a better way of disguising the taste. The same with extra virgin olive oil. If you do put oils like that in, make sure they are cold pressed and make sure they're not damaged. That really, whatever you put in this drink is really up to you. And I would really think about the amount of antioxidants you can get into it. Try and make it as concentrated source of antioxidants, but just bear in mind the sugar content all the time. The last thing I wanted to say was, if you've never done this before, there are a lot of companies that sell very high-tech juicers, very high-tech blenders, liquidizers, and they can be quite expensive. I make smoothies, and the smoothie maker that I have is a blender from Argos. If you're in the United Kingdom, you'll know what Argos is. If you're outside the United Kingdom, it's just a general household store that we have. And my blender cost me £10, and it does the job fine. It's got, I think, 1.5 litre size jug on it, which is ample. It's very big. I'm now on my second one of those blenders. I had one, it lasted for about 2 years. So £10, it lasted for about 2 years before the jug broke, and I went and bought another one because I was quite happy with it. You don't need to spend £100 on a juicer or blender. The liquidizer that you can buy from Argos, or possibly you can get them online, I don't have anything to do with Argos. I don't sell anything. It's just an example. I just wanted to, if you're interested in getting a blender to be able to blend fruits and vegetables up, that's the cheapest one that I found, and I find it perfectly adequate. It's got two settings. It's got a low setting and a high setting. The jug's large. It seems to be reliable. And it does everything it says on the box, and that's fine for me. If you want to spend more money, that's up to you, but I'm just saying that you don't have to spend that kind of money if you want to make smoothies. You can, for £10 in the United Kingdom, get a very cheap blender from Argos, and that will do the job perfectly well. So I hope that was interesting. They are a very useful way of getting phytonutrients into the diet. They're a very good way of encouraging people who perhaps don't consume a lot of fruit and vegetables, because they can be made to taste very nice. They're a very good way of perhaps you've got a relative that you want to encourage to consume more fruits and vegetables. Perhaps you've got a son or a daughter that won't consume fruits and vegetables, they don't like the taste of them. Hiding things in a blender, in a blended drink, in a smoothie, is a very good way of encouraging people to consume more phytonutrients, which will hopefully benefit their health. So I hope that video was interesting. If you've got any comments on this or anything you want to add, put them in the comments box below, and as always, I'll try to get back to you. And in the meantime, take care, and I will see you next week for another video.